What is up, YouTube? It is Docky here, Docky Style Gaming, and I am back at it again with another Godfall video for you all today. And in this is one I've actually kind of been wanting to put out for a while, especially now that the Exalted update and Ultimate Edition of the game has been out for a little over a month now, and because I keep getting this comment in my comment section, in my streams, and so much more, and that's, is this game for you? Is it good? Is it bad? What are the pros? What are the cons? What's the end game like? And so much more. So I thought now that just about everybody who wants to play the game now has the opportunity to play the game, now that the Ultimate Edition has brought Godfall to Xbox and Steam, and then of course PS4, PS5, and Epic Game Store players can now play this game. Now's the perfect time for a re-review, so to speak. So in this video, I am going to be answering all of those questions, breaking down the pros, breaking down the cons, what's good, what's bad, what's great, what could be improved, and so much more. Is this game ultimately for you, and should you pick it up? Now, before we get right into this video, I do want to say, even though I'll break it down more at the end of the video, I did get a surprising package from Gearbox and Counterplay Games today, and in that package came with 2 codes, one for Steam and one for Xbox, for copies of the game. So, at the end of the video, I'll be breaking down completely how you can enter to get one of those 2 codes. But until then, like I always say, without wasting any more of y'all's time now, let's get straight into this video. Now, not only was Godfall a launch title back in 2020, it was also the very first title for the PS5 announced back in 2019 at the Game Awards. Now, fast forward to 2022, where the game has multiple updates, an expansion, a bunch more content than it had at launch. There's a whole lot to get into. And honestly, there was a lot to get into at launch that I feel like a lot of people glossed over in some of their earlier reviews. I've mentioned it before on stream, but I got a copy of this game the same time most other people got their review copies as well. And considering when they put out their videos, let's just say most of these reviewers didn't even play the game for a full day before they put out their videos. Some even went on a record in some of their written reviews saying they only played Godfall for about 9 hours or even less before they put out their reviews for the game. Now, in my personal opinion, I've always said this on just about everything. When it comes to looters, I personally need a week to judge the game. The whole point of a looter is to try and bring you back every single day. It's so that you can keep running through that same grind, getting better gear, getting better builds, or so on and so forth every single day. And you can't do that in less than 24 hours of play on a looter. You're definitely not going to get to max level, you're not going to get the best builds, you're not going to maximize all of the potential of the game, you're not even going to get to go through all of the in-game mechanics in under 9 hours. For example, I streamed the game on a launch for 10 hours, which is longer than some reviewers played the game before they dropped the review on it. So there was a whole lot in a lot of reviews I watched that some of these people left out. So this video, I'm going to be covering some of the things that a lot of people missed and some of the stuff that has now been introduced into the game, going over the good, the bad, the pros, the cons, and again, some stuff that, not gonna lie, we kind of don't need. So with that, let's get into 2 of my opinion, some of the biggest issues that Godfall does have right out the gate. First of which being, it doesn't explain hardly anything well, which is crazy because the codex in game explains everything, and it is a very in-depth codex. But this game doesn't even explain that there's a codex to explain everything that needs explaining. And for a game that literally has so many mechanics and so many features, I appreciate there's a codex in there for it, but honestly, the game should inform their players a lot more when it comes to things you need to do and how certain mechanics and game modes work. Now, on top of that, another big issue that this game does have is its story. Now, I could go into a long list of rabbit holes of looters whose main stories aren't that good or honestly are just as generic as Godfall's is. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Godfall's story mode is nothing new that you haven't seen. Like every looter archetype, you're the last of whatever, and you have to stop the big bad from taking over the world. Destiny 2, you're the Guardians trying to stop Gaul. Wonderlands just came out, you're the Fate Maker trying to stop the Dragon Lord. Anthem, you were the Freelancer trying to stop the Monitor. And in Godfall, you're a Valorian trying to stop Macros. So as stories gets, it is very vanilla. But on top of the story being very bland, it's also not much to do when it comes to the main campaign. You're pretty much doing a couple missions to explore the realms until you get to the final boss, but while you're doing that, you're only exploring realms, coming back to the sanctum, exploring realms, coming back to the sanctum, and that's it. There doesn't seem to be much more outside of that main story structure in the main story mode. Now, granted, the Exalted update did enhance the story and I was able to play it on a secondary account, but honestly, it's just a bit more dialogue here, some brief new cutscenes as well, but it's honestly nothing too crazy that's going to really change up the main story mode experience. It's nice that they added some additional lore and depth to the story mode, but at the end of the day, it's the same base campaign. Now, luckily, when the Fire and Darkness expansion came out, the story mode had some proper cutscenes, it actually had a pretty decent story, and the length of the campaign actually wasn't too bad, with a secondary side boss fight as well that you were able to do after you beat the campaign. But again, as stories go for looters, it's nothing to write home about. And at the end of the day, most campaigns are just here to give you lore for the stuff you're going to be shooting, or in this case, slashing in a looter. Now, speaking of slashing and loot, let's hop into one of the biggest pros of this game, and that is the loot. Godfall has hundreds of weapons to choose from between 5 different classes. You have your great swords, your long swords, your dual blades, your war hammers and polearms, and then on top of all of that, you still have rings to choose from, charms, amulets, banners, lifestones, and so much more to actually farm for. Like cosmetics for your Valorplates and weapons, and even some of their different variations and mutations for loot that come from different activities in games, which honestly are even more powerful than normal loot in most cases, like Cursed and Awakened loot, and Primal gear, and dual and triple primary stat weapons. That's definitely a question I have gotten before on a lot of my streams is, how is the loot in the game, and is there a lot of loot? And yes, there is a whole lot of loot, and this game is very generous on the amount it gives you. Now, it is very RNG heavy, so you still might not get what you need for your perfect build, but hey, that's the point of looter. Keep farming, keep grinding, and hopefully you get what you'll get. Granted, I have been playing since day one, and I still have yet to get a Primal Paradise, and I will forever be salty about it until I get one. Next, though, let's talk about the builds, which is the meat and the true, in my opinion, endgame of Godfall. Now, Godfall does have in-game modes, but the builds in Godfall is really what you're going to be spending most of your time with, trying to maximize your damage potential, survivability, and clear through some of the in-game modes as efficiently and fast as possible. Now, builds is honestly the part that 99.99999% of the OG reviewers never got into. And that's honestly what kind of irritated me the most, because again, that is truly Godfall's endgame. When the game was first launching, they said that they wanted Godfall to be the Tinkerer's dream. And with all of the different stuff that we actually have in Godfall to mess around with, builds in particular, you really can tinker with just about everything. Down from individual stats to element power, cooldowns, overhealth, crit chance, crit damage, and so much more. Builds in this game are crucial for both playstyle diversity and to change up the combat for, again, increased power and more. And with so many ways to build in this game, like I said, it's kind of a sin that most of the original reviewers never covered this. Like, I honestly still get people who just start playing this game, or who probably even started playing during the Challenger Edition, being like, oh, this game is actually pretty fun, or must have gotten better. And I'm honestly just kind of like, nah, if you kind of like what you're playing now, you would have liked it at launch. Outside of the new content and game modes, the build fundamentals are essentially the same that were at launch. Now, granted, the newest Exalted update did give us Valorplate shards for all 12 of the Valorplates in game, which give them some brand new abilities. But pairing that with weapon rolls, ring rolls, banner rolls, and other gear stats on top of unique augment constellations, shards, skill grids that can give you new combat abilities, techniques, and skills, and all of that with an additional 400 plus ascension levels that unlock permanent stats and abilities, and ascension powers for all of your Valorplates, Godfall's build variety is honestly insane. Now, I know I was just speaking very fast, but I just wanted to say that there is a lot to do. People who probably don't play Godfall have no idea what I was talking about, but I wanted to emphasize that there is a whole lot to get into when it comes to builds. And that was a key thing that almost every review I watched when this game launched didn't even touch on, especially with it being a core focus on the game. There are so many killer YouTubers out right now that make so many builds for Godfall that almost none of them are the same. I mean, of course, like all games, there are meta builds, but more often than not, especially in matchmaking and even potentially with your friends, it's highly unlikely y'all are going to be running the same builds, even if y'all are on the same Valorplates. Because everyone ultimately has different playstyles, and this game is definitely about maximizing yours and finding out which playstyle best fits you. Now, speaking of playstyle, let's quickly slide over to combat briefly, because again, that's another topic that a lot of people didn't really get too much into. Now, like most games, when you start the game, your combat is very minimal. You have your blocks, parries, dodges, you have your shield throws, you have your light attacks, heavy attacks, but there are also some unique mechanics as well that GodFall has built into the game, such as a soul shatter mechanic that lets you build up damage on an enemy's health and then essentially let you explode them. There's also breach meters that allow you to perform a takedown when you max out the enemy's breach bar. And that's just a couple to name a few. There are a lot of other mechanics like this in GodFall that mix up the combat, on top of brand new abilities that you unlock with your skill grid, like takedowns, timing attacks, special shield throws, weapon techniques, and so much more. The combat in this game is a lot deeper than just hack and slash, though to be fair, if you do have a pretty OP build, you can kind of get away with hacking and slashing. But the mechanics are there, and when they are used properly, the game does get hella fun and extremely flashy. Timing attacks are definitely some of the more satisfying abilities to pull off, on top of death blows and soul shattering as well. And with the new Valorplate shard system that was implemented with the Exalted update that just came out, combat feels like a whole new beast and changes up builds for the better. But now that we got the mechanics of the game, the story mode, and so much more out of the way, let's actually wrap this video up and talk about the in-game mechanics, the game modes that you're going to be spending most of your time playing in GodFall. Now, not gonna lie, the dumbest thing I hear when it comes to people talking about not just GodFall, but any looter is that it's repetitive. And it's like, yeah, that's the point of a looter. No matter what looter you play, you are doing the same thing over and over every day. The real question is it enjoyable, and is it rewarding enough for you to want to come back and play it day to day? And after playing GodFall for all of these years, it's kind of 50-50. Luckily though, there are multiple game modes for you, but at a high level play, you'll really only focus on, let's be real, 1, maybe 2, and a third game mode, but that's out of necessity and not really out of fun. So let's just get into all of these game modes in general. First of which being Dreamstones, your one-stop shop for leveling up everything early on, farming additional skill points, but main reason, or the necessity, is to farm upgrade materials for your gear, used for leveling up gear, enchanting your rarity, and even things like newly added Valorplate shards. Now, low-level Dreamstones become very useless very fast, especially when you realize they are dropping lower-level loot, and if it wasn't for having to do them all at least once for your skill points, honestly, I would never touch basic Dreamstones at all. Now, Dreamstones, when they get to 50 plus, is at least a nice sweet spot where you can farm comfortably, but honestly, the challenge still kind of goes out of the window as you work your way up to 60. By that time, you're getting better gear, so you'll be able to wipe the floor with just about anything. But if you're just trying to stock up on resources, it is definitely one of the easiest things to do at the cost of some Electrum. Now, volatile Dreamstones do slightly increase the challenge, even adding a life counter to some of those higher Dreamstones. So if you lose all of your lives in a Dreamstone, you completely lose that Dreamstone and the rewards you could have potentially got from it. Now, similar to Dreamstones as a whole, volatile Dreamstones are still done mainly out of necessity as well, and if a player didn't have to, they probably wouldn't do this, but considering it is still the only way that you can get your upgrade material, and is a decent way to lift some of the curses for your curse gear in game, it is still a necessity in most cases. The upside though is that it costs no Electrum to do them, and traditionally the runs are longer, there are greater modifiers to stack up on more resources, and a tad bit higher of a challenge. The biggest issue with volatile Dreamstones though is that it doesn't properly explain how to get them up to level 70. But for a game mode as a whole, Dreamstones isn't bad, but honestly, you're not even going to mess with normal Dreamstones. You're really only going to be focusing on volatile Dreamstones and stocking up on as many of them as you can and getting the most rewards and better rewards from them rather than the normal Dreamstone game mode. Hence why I say some of these game modes are very 50-50. Because though I appreciate some of the mechanics of them, as you get higher in the game level-wise, you're not going to use half of some of these game modes. Now moving on to the next in-game mode in GodFall, it's probably the one that everybody is going to focus on, but it is the Tower of Trials. Now you have your normal tower, your ascended tower, and your exalted tower, and all come in varying difficulties. Towers of Trials is going to be where your main endgame grind is, and is generally the hardest challenges in games with the best loot, and now with Exalted, the best way to get even rarer loot. Towers are the best way to test out your builds, level up, and fight the toughest enemies that also give you some of the best rewards. Now, starting with the basic tower or the normal towers, straight up pointless, not even gonna lie. They're lower tower levels that give you lower gear that most players will never touch, even new players. I personally don't get why it's here. Maybe it's just to show people how towers work, but once you do basic towers, you're never gonna run that again. But now, ascended towers, yeah, we can have fun here. Like I mentioned in a lot of my videos, if you think your build is up to snuff, ascended towers will pretty much let you know it's not. But it's honestly when the game mode gets the most fun and when you can start truly tinkering with your builds. And is where farming the right loot, upgrading your gear, skill grids, and build setup really come into play. There's also some exclusive loot that you could get from Ascended Towers of Trials as well, so I definitely recommend playing that game mode. Now, last but not least is the newest tower that was added, and that is the Exalted Towers of Trials. Now, to be real, the devs just wanted players to go through hell. Exalted Towers of Trials is 10 floors compared to the 30 that Ascended have, but it is 10 floors of pure brutality. But honestly, in a good way, that'll truly push your build to the limit to complete. And with a game mode this challenging, it is full of brand new and unique loot that you can only get from this tower, along with some exclusive cosmetics that you can only get from this tower as well. Because what is a looter without getting some cosmetics that you can flex on players, letting them know how good you are at the game? Now, Lightbringer honestly is, in my opinion, Godfall's best game mode. Every time I start a stream, I'm generally start off by playing Lightbringer. I have fun playing that game mode. My only real gripe with Lightbringer is that it is too quiet. Can we get some background music, some ambiance or something up in there? Other than that though, it does feel slightly different from the basic game modes that you play in Godfall, where it's just kill, 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 slash, slash, slash. There's actually a bit of mechanics to it, whether it's lighting up the beacons, trying to make sure you don't die in the darkness, escorting the light, finding the light caches, making sure you get 3 stacks for the amplifier, and so much more. There's a lot of mechanics to it that actually make the game mode very fun. And though Exalted Towers of Trials and Ascended Towers of Trials are great for getting a lot of loot, Lightbringer is extremely fun in its own right too, and does of course have its own exclusive loot pool of cursed gear, which is some of the rarest gear in game that have their own mechanics to them as well. Think Rivens from Warframe. But that's all I'm going to get into when it comes to Lightbringer, because again, I feel like that game mode is damn near perfect and is hella fun. And if you are a new player, I kind of want you to experience it for yourself. Now, moving on to the newest game mode, we are getting into the Spirit Realm. Now, Spirit Realm game mode it's not that great. I'm not going to lie. Spirit Realm is one of those game modes that completely feels like it was made just to be tedious. It's not a game mode that I enjoy to play solo, whereas every other in-game mode, I have no problem playing solo. Lightbringer, like I said, I start streams with it. I love playing Lightbringer solo. Ascended and Exalted Towers of Trials, I'll play those solo for the challenge all the time. Even Dreamstones, it's actually faster to run Dreamstone solo when you're farming gear than with a team, because you don't have to wait through the matchmaking menus. But Spirit Realm, I don't want to play it with teammates or solo if I'm being real. Now, one of the main issues I have with it is it feels like it's not really enough of anything. And it kind of let a lot of players down expectation-wise as well. With the announcement of a brand new game mode that can hold up to 6 players, we were definitely expecting something a bit bigger and more grand, especially when it comes to some of the boss fights in the game. The Spirit Realm has a lot of implications lore-wise in Godfall, so we were expecting to see some of that crossover into the game. We know the Spirit Realm is where the Archons are trapped, and our Valorplates are based off the Archons, so instead of the boss fights being Spirit Realm version of bosses from that realm, why don't we just fight essentially giant versions of our own Valorplates and just call them Archons? Even something as simple as that would have been nice. But on top of that, the mechanics just aren't the best. And filling up all the different soul altars, charging them up so that you can increase the level of the game mode, fight the boss, rinse and repeat, get better loot, and so on and so forth. It's a decent concept, but it's not executed properly in my opinion, especially when it comes to playing solo. You can only hold up to 5 souls as is in this game mode, and if you're wanting to fully charge a soul altar, you'll at least need 12. Meaning you'll have to go back and pick up other souls or pick up a few, bring them there, because souls despawn if you go too far away from them. So this is the longest process to do solo. And if you're on Reddit, my Discord, if you're in the comment section, I know people are always looking for multiple people to play Spirit Realm with because it is just not a fun experience to play by themselves. And honestly, they're not even looking for people to play with it because they enjoy the game mode. Like I said, they're playing it because of a necessity to exalt their Valorplates. Most players that I have encountered have been like, I am never going back into Spirit Realm because 1, it's too tedious, and 2, after the grind to exalt their Valorplates, they don't want to see that realm anymore. Honestly, if it didn't cost this much to overcharge some of the altars while playing solo, I think that would help improve it a bit more, but also, really, the switching between Spirit Vision just isn't that fun to fight enemies. Especially when you have builds that are as strong as some of mine, where you could just one-shot an enemy, and then you have to try and switch to Spirit Vision to kill the other, and there's that brief delay. It's like, that's not the most fun concept for fighting, especially some of the bosses that can switch on a snap, and then you'll have to delay yourself and try and switch back so that you can deal damage, but by the time you switch back, they've already reswitched, then you gotta delay, then you gotta switch back. It's like Batman's detective mode, but fighting while you're in detective mode, but half of the enemies you can't even hit, but they can hit you. It's just, if I'm being honest, and like I typically am not negative towards the game unless they kind of deserve it, and Spirit Realm game mode is just not a good game mode, if I'm being real. There's a lot of things that they can improve, and luckily GodFall has been known to improve their game modes, like we got with the Dreamstones 2.0 rework and the Towers of Trials 2.0 rework. So hopefully, because I have for sure seen people in my comment section on the Reddit and in my Discord talk about it, hopefully there's going to be some changes coming to Spirit Realm to at least make it more enjoyable, even for just a solo player experience. Because like I mentioned, every game mode in Godfall, I have no problem playing solo, and most of the times I have just as much fun playing solo as I do in multiplayer. Spirit Realm, again, I don't care to play that solo ever. And if I'm playing with multiple players, it's really just to help them out. I'm kind of in that same camp where I don't want to go back to Spirit Realm if I don't have to. But now that I got that mini rant about Spirit Realm out of the way, I have really been holding that in since I have been playing it. Let's talk about the last in-game mode, or I guess you could call it an in-game mode, but it's the free roam. I mean, it's essentially just the game mode, but it's essentially more of a time killer. There are different mini objectives you can complete to get you some loot at your level while freely being able to explore the realms. It's nothing fancy or special, but I do personally like free roam if I'm being real. But with that, those are pretty much all of the in-game modes in a nutshell. Now there are some other things like boss hunts as well, but I wouldn't really classify those as full-on in-game modes. Those are just other game activities that you can do throughout Godfall. But before I fully wrap it up, I know people are going to eat me alive if I don't mention it, and I'm definitely going to mention it because I was very pissed at this as well. And like I mentioned a bit earlier, I don't traditionally get mad at Godfall, but this legit pissed me off. The exalting system in Godfall. Now, I personally think it is ridiculous that you need to unlock every Valorplate shard to exalt every Valorplate. That wasn't the point of it in their original dev post, and that's just not a fun experience for players. Right now, there are so many people who are playing the game and they're just like, this is the biggest chore to do. They're not honestly having fun playing the game, they're just doing it so they could get their shiny new skin and their brand new passive abilities and their maxed out stats for their Valorplate shards. Now, for newer players, luckily this isn't too bad because everything you're going to be doing to unlock your Valorplate shards, you probably are going to be doing naturally anyway. But for some of the OG, returning, and veteran players, most of the shard requirements outside of Spirit Realm related stuff, 90% of us have probably already done 10 times over. Whether it's reach level 15 in the Towers of Trials or do 15 polarity attacks, these are things that OG players have already done. So the fact that we're going to have to do all of this again is already tedious on its own, while also having to unlock multiple shards for Valorplates that some people don't even care to play. Now honestly, I get the devs wanting players to play with every Valorplate, but the smarter thing to do would have been to have players unlock 2 shards for each Valorplate, especially considering each Valorplate can only hold 2 shards, and then once they do that, they can then focus on the Valorplate they want to play and then unlock the rest of those shards and then ultimately Exalted. In their dev post, they said they want to reward players for playing with their Valorplates. But if you want to exalt your main Valorplate, you have to play with other Valorplates that you don't care for? That's not rewarding me for playing with my Valorplate though. So the fact that you have to unlock every shard for every Valorplate to exalt even one, just the one that you want, is ridiculous. And again, a comment I see on Reddit all the time, in my Discord all the time, and on almost every stream is, do you think the devs are going to change the shard unlock requirement? And honestly, I don't know, but I hope so. I know many of people in my Discord who have said they're fine with just having their Valorplate shards being at 4 because everything's too tedious for them. So they're never going to exalt their Valorplates. So the fact that you implemented and added something that I think is super dope with the Exalted Valorplates, giving you maxed out stats for your shard, giving you new cosmetics, and a brand new third passive, but the fact that people will probably never experience that because they feel like the grind for it is way too tedious. Hopefully, like I said, it is something that I don't know if any devs watch my videos, but if they do, hopefully y'all have been taking notice on Reddit. I definitely made a post about it when I figured out that you needed to unlock every Valorplate shard on my Twitter, and I know some devs definitely took notice of that, but that's something that I feel like a lot of people would be happy with if the devs at least addressed it. So again, that's my only real issue with the new Exalted system in the game, is that the requirements are way too tedious, and hopefully they are scaled down. But that was something I at least wanted to address, and I know people would be pissed if I didn't address it. But with that, even though it's kind of ended on a note, that's pretty much going to wrap up my overall opinions and review of Godfall now in the current state that it's in. Now, not even going to get into everything in the game because there is still a whole lot more to get into, like the quest system, the combat mechanics like consuming the forge, upgrading your gear, awakening the exalted Valorplates in general. There's just so much more to actually get into that this video would be hours and hours long if I tried to. I just wanted to make this because, again, I constantly get asked, should I buy this game, or is this a good game? And honestly, even though I think that's a weird question to ask because that's like asking a professional football player, hey, do you like to play football? 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a biased answer of course, because they've been playing it presumably for their whole life. So when I get asked that, I'm like, I've been playing since launch, so of course I do. But I do know that the game also isn't for everyone. So I wanted to at least put the most important details out there for those of you who may be considering the game, those of you who might hate the game, or those of you who are on the fence. I wanted to tell you the pros, I want to tell you the cons, my personal experience in an informative and honestly a non-biased way as I possibly could. Like I said, again, I know this game isn't for everyone. I have a buddy that I play damn near every co-op game with, but I've never tried to tell him, yeah, you should definitely get this game, because I know this is not his type of game. And that's completely fine. People can like what they want. If you like the game, great. If you don't, that's perfectly fine too. It's only annoying when you start bashing other people for what they like. And honestly comes off as hella entitled, as if players can't like what they want now because you don't like it. Honestly, take that energy and do something else with it. Or if you are feeling very salty about this video, you can comment in the comment section below. That still counts as viewer engagement, which means more people are going to see this video. And if you're still mad after that comment, feel free to dislike, because that counts as engagement too. And bonus, nobody's going to see it. So it's a win-win for me. But that's all I got, and I want to wrap it up like that. So if you enjoy the game, let me know below. If you're on the fence, let me know below. And if you don't like the game, let me know why, and I'll probably prove you wrong with facts. But with Godfall being out on every platform, now was the perfect time, I feel like, to give it a mini re-review, so to speak. And with it getting its biggest update honestly ever. Now is not only the best time to pick up Godfall if you're interested, but also you're getting Godfall at its best price. I remember seeing a lot of people saying that the game either didn't launch in a good state or didn't sell well, which are both false statements. The game launched in a pretty good spot. Of course, there was a couple hotfixes here and there, but it wasn't broken. And the game was on PlayStation Network's top downloaded games for like 6 months straight. And that's only for digital sales. That's not even including physical copies as well. And that's while it was only a PlayStation exclusive title. So that means even though PS4 games were still being sold, Godfall was still on that list for 6 months straight. And then we even got a report last month that Godfall was on the top downloaded games for Xbox. So Godfall, even though people like to bring up the quote unquote negative reviews it got when it launched way back in 2020, even though we're in 2022 now, the game has never honestly been in a bad state. It definitely needed polish, but luckily every 3 to 4 months, Godfall gets a brand new update, more times than not a free update, and then it has also gotten expansions as well. They have been updating this game consistently since launch, and it has only been getting better and better. And again, like I said, with the price being the way it is, if you are on the fences, and if you really want my opinion, definitely pick up Godfall Ultimate Edition. You're going to get access to every update that came out and the DLC for a killer price. But with that, that's all I got for this video because, my God, I know this video was much longer than it should have been, so I'm about to wrap it up. So like I always say, thank you all for watching. Like always, be sure to leave a like if you liked the video. If you didn't, still leave a like because nobody's going to see that dislike. And if you aren't in the Discord, be sure to join that. Link to that is in the video description. Got guides, builds, LFG on all things Godfall, games to cover on the channel, and some games that I don't, along with being sure to follow me on Twitch. That is where I stream just about every day, if I can. So be sure to follow me on Twitch to catch, again, more Godfall streams. I help out anybody that needs help, or just other games I cover on the channel. And lastly, before I forget, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do have 2 codes for Godfall. I have one for Steam and one for Xbox, so all you have to do to be able to win one of these codes is in the comment section below, drop a DSG along with the platform you want to win it for, either PC or Xbox, and come Monday on stream, I will pick and announce the winner live on my Twitch channel. Also, it'll let me know who actually watched this video to the end. So let's see them DSGs down in the comment section below. Other than that, I will catch y'all all on the next one though. Again, thank you all for watching. I'm out of here, guys. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the subs. Peace.